So that last piece I just played was an introduction to Moonrise, and then this last piece I played was by Philip Wesley. And now I'm going to move to the harp. And I will be right with you momentarily. Let's see. Hey, can you all see the harp? Okay.
All great, Kim.
Yes, now the harp. Okay, let me change some keys. Oh, wait. I play a lever harp, Lionelli Prelude Lever 40 harp. And that was Summer by Antonio Vivaldi.
Kim, it's 7:30.
Okay, that is
Okay,
our
thank you so much. I'm really sorry that we weren't able to transmit your sound to the rest of the folks here in the auditorium, but thank you so much as always, and hopefully next month we'll get it straightened out. Meanwhile, welcome everybody, both people here that are in the audience in person and people that are online. This is the July meeting of Orange County Astronomers. I'm the current president, Barbara Toy, in case you didn't know, and we really have a very interesting program that's planned for tonight. I'm really looking forward to it. Before I turn this over to our announcement person, I would like to mention that there are unfortunately a number of wildfires running around in Southern California, including one that is not very far from Temecula right now that just came up this afternoon. If you're going out to Anza to do viewing, or actually any place else, it would probably be a good idea to check before you leave to make sure that there aren't any fires in the vicinity where that might affect your viewing. Smoke is going to become a growing concern for viewing over the next few months, I'm afraid. So just that astronomical word of warning. And with that, let me turn it over to Kyle for our monthly announcements.
All right. Here. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Perfect. Welcome new members. You'll find your name badges on the whiteboard right up front. If you're not attending the meetings in person and are attending the general meetings online, they'll be mailed out to you in a couple months. For those of you who are attending in person, please feel free to stop by the coffee stand up top, where there's coffee, donuts, and water available for purchase right up by the entrance. Star parties, currently the next ANSA Star Party is scheduled for August 3rd. That is obviously assuming that no fires interrupt that. The Astrophysics Special Interest Group meeting will be July 19th at 7 p.m. at the Heritage Museum. The beginners class is August 2nd at 7:30 at the Heritage Museum, and the next board meeting is July 28th online. All of these events are on the Orange County Astronomers website, and look at the calendar to see all the events. This barbecue is also currently scheduled for the ANSA Star Party on August 3rd. Outreach events. This was announced last month, but we'll say it again just so everyone's, if you weren't here last month, please join us in welcoming Martin Christensen as the new Outreach Events Program Coordinator. You can contact him at the email there, outreach@ocastronomers.org. And we have 4 upcoming outreach events. If you are able to help volunteer at any of these events, please reach out to Martin as he is looking for volunteers. Our Adopt a Scope program is up and running. If you go online, follow under the Resources tab, head to the Adopt a Scope link, and you'll be able to see a current inventory and a sample adoption agreement, along with more information just about the program in general, if that's something that interests you. If you're new or just looking to shop around for a telescope and want to try one out, it's a really great program for that. Our Serious Astronomer editor, Dave Fisher, is always looking for new content. If you have items of interest, please contact him at newsletter@ocastronomers.org. Some things we look for are articles, images, trip reports, etc. If you have anything that you think would be interesting to go in the newsletter, send it off to him and he will review those. Newsletter delivery preferences. Just as a reminder, the newsletter is always available in electronic format online. Everyone receives a mailed copy to their home address unless they opt out. If you would like to opt out of receiving a mailed copy, please email Charlie. Friendly reminder, if you're out at ANSA, to lock the ANSA house, ensure all windows are closed, and to close the gate to the site. Along with, please remember, especially as we're now heading into fire season, to help keep the weeds clear. The next main general meeting will be August 9th, and I will turn it over to Chris Butler for the What's Up presentation coming up next. Thank you.
Thank you very much, folks. All right, let me see if I can negotiate the screen here and get to the presentation. Let's see, where am I? Here we go. All right, there we are. As far as the what's up, let's talk about what's going on in the sky at this time of year.
Chris, you do need to share your screen for the
Oh, I need to share my. Yes. Oh, you guys have all these requirements from people actually seeing things. Let me see here. could I have one of our highly qualified AV persons assist with the sharing of the screen? It's a ritual. It has to be done exactly right. The software is actually slightly different than what I use at home. Yes, yeah, we were all noticing that. We know I can project to the back seats here very effectively, but the microphone seems to be extremely soft. So from a standpoint of the levels, someone might want to do something on that. Yeah, that's okay. I can speak. Oh, just a moment, folks. Don't worry. The presentation will be worth your wait. Okay. That's it. That's me. All right, there we are. I believe. Do we see the presentation now, Ressa?
Yes, but not in the presentation mode.
Okay, stand by. That's in work. She says, go up to the top, slideshow. All right. Do we have it?
Yes, all good on our side.
Fantastic. All right. Well, let me see then. Sorry about the confusion on that. Let me see if I can remember how to do a What's Up presentation. Thank you for your able assistance. We are past the summer solstice now, so that the days are starting to get shorter, but we still have a lot of hours of sunlight right now. I do want to call attention to the fact the sun is not actually setting until about 8 p.m. and it is rising right around 6 a.m. in the morning. All right, let me see here. Yeah. Okay, my left and right slide advance is not working. Not many people here are old enough to remember the Live from Anza broadcast, but they went every bit this smoothly. Yeah, we that's okay. No, we can wing it. We're getting there. I think I did great with the one slide though. Yeah, because that was the only slide I had actually. That was the entire presentation. All right. Let's see. Right. There we go. Look at that. Wow. All right. Well, you folks paid such a large amount to get in. You actually get extra slides. So for your third slide is the phases of the moon tonight. And for the phases of the moon in July, right now we have that waxing crescent that you see in the lower left of your screen. We had the dark of the moon, new moon on July 5th. This is a good time for observing the moon. We're coming around to first quarter moon on July 13th when the moon will be half lit in the evening sky. This is a very good time to do observing of features on the moon. July 21st is that full moon. It's kind of an annoying time for people looking for dark skies, but it should be very pretty. Coming around then to last quarter, the half-lit moon in the morning sky on July 27th. As far as the planets, let me run through these quickly here. I will point out Mercury. If you're a Mercury fan, we have a good opportunity for Mercury right now. Mercury is an evening object. It is in the west after sunset. It is just about at maximum elongation or distance from the sun. So I do recommend you have a look. There'll be a chart to follow momentarily to show you that. Venus is also in the evening sky after sunset. However, it is much lower in the sky. While it is brilliant, and you might notice it with binoculars or whatever after the sun sets, he says for emphasis, for legal purposes, don't destroy your eyes. But Venus is down there, and you may notice it, but give it some time, a couple months to rise higher. Mars is a morning object that rises at 2 a.m. It's in Taurus. It's a first magnitude object, but note it is small in our sky. It is not a good telescopic target at this time. You might just notice it with your eyes. And I'll show you a picture of that because it has some company that's kind of pretty. Jupiter is also in Taurus, visible in the morning. Again, a chart to follow. Saturn, we've heard referenced with the beautiful rings. It's in Aquarius. It rises at about 11 p.m. It is at its highest just as the sky starts to get light with the morning. So I would say it's 2, 3 in the morning. You can get a look at Saturn. And again, we'll have a picture there to show you what it looks like. Uranus is not far from Mars in the sky. Of course, it's much more distant, so it's a morning object as well. Neptune, not too far from Saturn, in fact, about 10 degrees away from it. And Pluto and Ceres. This is unusual. I'm mentioning 2 dwarf planets in one presentation. And the reason for that, Pluto, I bring up just to annoy the people who demoted it. And I'm just going to keep bringing it up regularly. Absolutely. Pluto is a planet as far as I'm concerned. It is, however, of course, incredibly faint. If you want to know when it's at its highest, 1:45, 1:42 here, it says in the morning. Ceres, though, is actually a little bit more convenient. And I have one member of the club in particular who cannot refuse a challenge, meaning I will tell them to take a picture of a beryllium atom and they will go out and try to do it. And I know what I'm talking about. Ceres, I will mention the challenge that I have for you. This is the sky at 9 p.m. Well, wide angle view there. You can see that crescent moon called out in the southwest, and you see Venus very, very low on the horizon off to the northwest. It is not very high. You can see this actually would still be a twilight sky. There would be more interference from the sun than you see in this chart. But this is as the sky is getting dark. Mercury is definitely higher up in the sky than Venus. So this is a good time to give a try for Mercury. Now, as far as constellations and all that, for the last couple of months, you've been paying attention to the springtime constellations like Ursa Major, the Great Bear with the Big Dipper in it, which is in the northwest. Still visible, sure. Leo the Lion, though, definitely getting low in the west. You really can't see it very well now because of the glow of the sun. But Otis the herdsman is much higher in our sky, but already as the sky gets dark, it's at its highest and starting to go down. And Virgo the maiden is ahead of that, where the moon is tonight. So you can kind of say goodbye to these constellations. But notice it's really not time yet for constellations we often think of as being the summer constellations. Over in this part of the sky, highlighted are some of the constellations like the 3 constellations of the summer triangle, marked by Deneb, Vega, and Altair. That, yes, they're available, but they're going to be better towards midnight, something like that. You want to wait a little bit longer for them to get up in the sky. And yes, at 9 o'clock, we've got Scorpius, the scorpion. We've got Sagittarius, the archer, down in the south. The same thing's true, though. You probably want to give them a little extra time. What in the world are you going to do from 9 p.m. to, say, 11 or 12 in the at night? You need something to do. And so there are constellations at the start of the summer sky, and they often get overlooked. We go rushing off to these more famous things like the summer triangle. But before you do that, let me recommend a whole series. There are constellations like Draco the dragon, beautifully placed in the far north at this time of year. Hercules, of course, very famous constellation. It also is just about straight overhead. It's going to be beautifully placed. But then the one I'm focusing on is one I almost always miss. I almost always forget to mention it, and that's kind of a shame because Ophiuchus is one of the large, bright constellations of this time of year. It is well placed by 9 p.m., but will be visible throughout the night as well. So Ophiuchus is what I'm going to focus on this month. This is one of the original 48 constellations that Ptolemy noticed or listed in his star atlas. It has had a variety of names over the years, one of which is the delightful and now not used Serpentarius. I love that name. Wish they kept it. Of course, this is snakes on a plane. This is a guy wrestling with snakes. All right. And of course, we'll explain a little bit more why in just a moment, a tiny bit more why. But man with big giant snake. Well, the guy is Ophiuchus in the mythological figure. But as for the snake is actually a separate constellation. But you'll notice the snake goes across the guy, which is interesting. Serpens, the serpent, is actually the only constellation in the entire sky that is split into two areas that don't touch one another. It is a single constellation, however, abbreviation SER, Serpens. It's sometimes referred to as Serpens cauda for the head, Serpens caput for the head, and Serpens cauda for the tail. It is a big constellation, the 11th brightest, and it has a full second magnitude star, Ras Al Hague, as its brightest star. It is associated with the mythological character of Asclepius for the Greeks. Ophiuchus is considered to be synonymous with that. That's the Roman name. And of course, here he is with the stake, the snake and the stake, I guess, his staff. He was a healer, and this is, of course, where we have the caduceus staff used for a sign for medicine, where you have the snake wound around the staff. That is the symbol of Asclepius, and therefore also Ophiuchus, who is in the sky. I just put this up here for two separate reasons. First of all, the snake being cut into two parts I thought was great because snakes generally don't like that. And the other reason I did this was because I'm never in my life going to get a chance to give Ben Franklin a screen credit again. He is actually apparently the artist who drew this. So anyway, when you see Serpens up there, just remember join or die. I think that's cute. Here's a photograph of Ophiuchus showing the Milky Way spilling across the sky off towards the center of our galaxy. The Milky Way is centered much more in constellations like Sagittarius. Ophiuchus has Milky Way in its southeastern portions and less up as you go to the northwest in this photograph. You can see that. It does have some fairly bright stars and so forth. It's a little harder to remember the constellation because it doesn't have such an obvious pattern. There's no rule that says constellations really have to look like something. You just kind of have to memorize the shape, and it's big, and it's got a few stars, and then you'll know what you're looking at. Here it is in chart form. I find these charts to be very helpful because there are lines connecting the stars. That makes it somewhat easier than in real life. You can see Ophiuchus listed there, and you can see Scorpius, the scorpion, at the bottom of your chart, and also Sagittarius, the archer. One thing I want to mention right off, as far as stars really overlooked and kind of exotic, one of the stars in this constellation, and I'll point it out in a moment where it is, 70 Ophiuchi is a good example of a double star that you might look at. You can split it into two stars. It's a twin sun system. The reason I find this one especially interesting, it's a nearby neighbor of our solar system at only about 16 odd light years away. Both of the stars are somewhat like our sun. And there have been suggestions that there might be a planet in this system. We have not, however, found one for sure yet. But you will never guess what year the very first person predicted that there was probably a planet around one of these stars was. You will be astounded to learn the first claim. And it is the very first claim officially for an exoplanet around another star. 1855, the first time somebody thought maybe the star was wiggling and it must be a planet. That actually happened here, but so far we haven't found one. If you want to have a look at this and see these two stars, when I joined OCA, these two stars were at their closest to one another. And it turns out that was so close. If you look at the scale at the bottom, they were something about like 1.5 arc seconds apart. It would have been hard for me with my scope to split them. and see both stars. But right now, the stars are at their farthest apart. There's something in the ballpark of 5 or 6 arc seconds apart. This really is an ideal time for you to look at 70 Ophiuchi. You will not be seeing any planets. Some hack space artist did this 20 odd years ago. I don't know who did it, but you can look as hard as you want, see if you could see planets out there. Here's 70 Ophiuchi listed on the top part, the north part of Ophiuchus, and you can see it's one of a series of 3 stars forming a triangle in that part of the constellation. It really is a pretty distinctive pattern. So even in a pair of binoculars, you could find that triangle, and the one that is farthest off to the east, that's it. And it's easy to get a scope pointed at it. And if you're looking for exotic and strange stars, Barnard star is the second closest star system to our own, freeway close at just 6 light years away. It is an incredibly faint star in your field. Yes, you can see it, but it's about, not much brighter than Pluto. And it's just a little star, but it's interesting because it's close. You can see where that is in the same part of the constellation, in fact. Now, of more interest for looking for things to look at, the yellow circles with a cross symbol on them, you'll know, many of you, those are globular star clusters, my favorite type of object. And it so happens the constellation is absolutely lousy with them, scattered across it, a whole series of these things. And I'll show you pictures of a couple here that you may be able to find. This is going down into the bottom part of the constellation, and yet more of these globular star clusters, M107, M9, M19, and just barely M62. Just barely. There are borders in the sky. There are edges to the constellations because astronomers have to make everything delineated and official. And M62 is so close to the border with the constellation Scorpius that part of the globular cluster is in Ophiuchus and part of it is in Scorpius. It actually straddles the border. I don't know if that's a problem with mail delivery or what, but anyway, that's the situation. These things are gorgeous. This is M9. Okay, admittedly, as seen through the Hubble Space Telescope, which is almost as good as the view I get through my own 8-inch telescope. Obviously, they are little glowing balls of stars. They don't look quite this big or bright. But you can see at magnitude 7.7, this is not terribly far from getting into naked eye visibility. And some of them are considerably brighter in the Ophiuchus collection. This one, for example, I gave you the data for those fans of M13, the famous globular cluster in Hercules. This is not greatly inferior to it. It's about a magnitude dimmer, but it's the same size, which is about 2/3 the apparent size of the full moon. So it's a sizable object, really, really worth your time. M12 here, another one that's a magnitude 6.7. That's quite bright, and again, 16 arc minutes across. Not shabby. M14, this is more the impression you'd get with a telescope under a dark sky sight. Another one, it's about half the size of the other ones I've shown you, but still, it's a really magnificent object. And then my favorite of these is M19 because it is one of the few globular clusters that shows it is elliptical in shape. We think many of them truly do have flattening to them, but you have to see them edge on. So this one is definitely on edge, which probably had too much coffee, and M19 in Ophiuchus. M62, as I mentioned, partly in Ophiuchus, partly in Scorpius, gorgeous to look at, almost even naked eye visible at magnitude 6.5. And then lastly, M107, parentheses, NGC 6171, because this is one of the later additions other people put into Mr. Messier's catalog. He didn't put it there. That's just kind of cheating, quite frankly, and it annoys me. But it is M107, another beautiful globular cluster. Looking at the sky a little later, I mentioned that Ceres was available. It is in the constellation of Sagittarius, the Archer, and it is right in the teapot pattern. It is also closest to us right now. It's 7th magnitude, 7.04, I believe, right now. It is not naked eye visible, but easy to find in a telescope. So if you were down there and you wanted to have a look at it, it might not look quite like this in your telescope. Not quite that big, but hold on now. Could you see any size on this, the largest of the asteroids? Could you do that? It's not quite as impossible as you think. Here's a diagram I made up. Jupiter, yes, very easy. Saturn, of course, just the ball, not the rings. Uranus and Neptune, both in my telescopes, I can clearly see that they are a dot, right? They are not, they have size. They're not a star-like point. Now, Ceres is that much smaller, as you see on that diagram, 0.7 arc seconds across. Now, you may think that's impossible, but the moons of Jupiter, how many people in here have looked at Jupiter's moons through a telescope, right? And certainly with Ganymede and Callisto, and I think for me, Io and Europa, I can see that they have a little bit of size. And there's their sizes as apparent sizes that you see in the telescope right down there. And it's not too different than the apparent size of Io or Europa. So if someone were so inclined, had spent too much money on their telescopes and needed to prove the worth of having bought them, they could try to shoot an image of Ceres now when it's at its closest and reveal it as a disk. I offer that challenge for those of you, you know who you are, who might wish to try this. Talking about Saturn and globulars and all this being edge on, well, the rings Saturn are pretty much getting to edge on right now. Next year, they're going to be edge on to us, and they'll basically pretty much disappear from sight for a little while. But right now, the rings are beautifully edge on. This is the angle that we're seeing them at this time. Go into the morning here. This is about 1 hour before sunrise. The sky is definitely starting to get lighter. Saturn, as you can see, is up high. Neptune, if you want to hunt it down, is visible there as well. I promised a collection of planets there. Jupiter, Mars, and Uranus are in the constellation Taurus over there where the sun is going to be rising. You can see them, not the best time, but they do make such a pretty pattern. I wanted to call it out. Jupiter is in the Hyades star cluster in the direction of, and is brilliantly obvious to your unaided eye. The bright star Aldebaran and the V-shaped Hyades star cluster. It'd be a really nice collection of stars and objects there. But also Mars. Mars is a first magnitude object up there, not far from the Pleiades. And if you wanted to hunt it down, Uranus is there as well. So I have done my best to give you something in the world to look for. And in the meantime, thank you very much for your time and attention. And I will turn it over to our Master of Ceremonies for a further voyage into astronomical wonder. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chris, for yet another wonderful presentation. That was great, and I hope there are a lot of folks who would be taking on your challenge. Looking on next when you're going to announce the results. So before I go and introduce our speaker tonight, I have to mention that the research you're about to hear is fresh from the oven, meaning that it's not yet published. So we're asked to not record or stream it. So for the people who are watching us from YouTube or Facebook or other venues, I do need to turn that off right now, and you can join us still via Zoom to see the actual presentation. And you could find a link to join us via Zoom at our website, ocastronomers.org. On the main page, there would be a link to the calendar entry relevant to tonight's meeting, and you could click on the Zoom link there. Now, with that said, let me